What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. Hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that the polo has been washed and ironed and you are ready for Victory Polo Monday. The Dallas Cowboys, your Dallas Cowboys, my Dallas Cowboys, our Dallas Cowboys thoroughly dominated, demolished, took care of, vanquished the New York Jets on Sunday afternoon. If somebody, anybody in the whole world, in the entire universe, in the entire solar system, and I can tell you all of the details of it because my 3-year-old son is obsessed with it. If anybody throughout it tries to tell you it's just the Jets, you can tell them to kick rocks because the Dallas Cowboys did not just win. The Dallas Cowboys kicked the Jets' ass in every single way. Good teams win, great teams cover. The Cowboys covered very early on in this game and did not really reach to do anything beyond that. What's more is beyond the general obviousness of why we do not apologize for wins and big time wins at that, is the Cowboys did this and accomplished this in a very highly impressive manner. The Cowboys, let me remind you, were down CeeDee Lamb, Kevontae Turpin, 80% of their starting offensive line, injuries all across the board, and yet they still opened, shout out to Bobby Boucher, a can of whoop ass on the New York Jets. Do not let anybody in any kind of small, tiny, fractional way make it seem like this is something that you or the Cowboys have to apologize for. This was highly impressive. It was a 10 out of 10 in each and every single possible way, all across the board. On YouTube, Shane Davis says the Jets have been putting up points on people. This was a good bounce back. And you know what's even better? In case anybody hasn't seen at this point in time in the chat, waited to go live just to make sure, the Eagles lost. Holy crap, what a fantastic day. What a fantastic, awesome weekend. This is why we love football. When everything is going your way, when your team is winning and other teams are losing, it is incredible. We're obviously rooting for the Chargers to take down the Washington Commanders. The New Orleans Saints took down the New York Giants, who were feeling tall after their Jackson Dart win last week. I'm a Florida Gator grad student, so beating the University of Texas on Saturday, my Arizona State Sun Devils climbed without even playing this weekend. When football is going your way, there is nothing, and I mean nothing, that can touch that level of euphoria. Shane Davis on YouTube adds, so much fun watching Dak being the best quarterback in the league right now. Now, Josh Allen has yet to play at this moment in time for week 5, but I would put it to anybody that Dak Prescott is or is not the best quarterback in the NFL. To echo that point, on Sunday against the New York Jets, Dakota Rain Prescott finished 18 of 29, 237 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, 2 of which happened to go to Jake Ferguson. First time, as the Cowboys PR staff updated everybody, the Cowboys tight end caught multiple touchdowns in a single game since Dalton Schultz late in the 2023 season. So shout out to Jake Ferguson. Dak Prescott, no interceptions, a 127.4 rating, had 7 rushing attempts for 28 yards. I think that's been an underrated element in terms of what Dak Prescott has been doing this season, to be more willing than he had been in the past. And I don't mean to put that on Dak. I think we're just speaking to offensive production at large, to get out on the move, the run game working. Javonte Williams, Dak Prescott is absolutely playing like the MVP of the NFL right now. And when he's playing like this, the fact that he's been playing like this for 5 games now, anything is possible. Yes, you can talk about, oh, it's only the Jets and blah, blah, blah. But if Dak Prescott plays like that across the significant duration of the 2025 NFL season, then anything and everything the Cowboys want to accomplish is absolutely well within reach. On YouTube, Kenny says, seems like Fergie is finding his true groove again, and man, it feels like vintage Witten. It is so awesome. Jake Ferguson is just, he's kind of a throwback player. He has an attitude that I think is a lot of fun to root for, one that kind of spills over through his play. That isn't necessarily the case for each and every single player. Let's talk about some stats. I haven't written my stock report yet. A little bit of a different pattern as we've been talking about earlier this season. I read it comes out a little bit after the games now, but Jake Ferguson in this game, 9 targets, 7 receptions, 49 yards, and had the 2 touchdowns. It was great to see. And I in no way mean to take away credit from Jake Ferguson, but if we're going to give anybody props from a pass catching standpoint, how about Ryan Flanoy? Ryan Flanoy was remarkable against the New York Jets. It's very clear and obvious that Brian Schottenheimer, from an offensive play caller standpoint, and Dak Prescott from a quarterback and the person throwing him the ball standpoint, that these 2 dudes, who are the most important dudes in that respect, have an obsession with Ryan Flanoy, and they absolutely should. He was nails last week against the Green Bay Packers. He was even more nails on Sunday against the New York Jets. 9 targets, 6 receptions, $114. He crossed 100 yards early in this game. He provides a different element. He provides something that the offense can really benefit from. Certainly right now, as they're dealing with life, not including CeeDee Lamb or Kevontae Turpin, this game did not require George Pickens to go off. I know he obviously had the touchdown, and believe me, George Pickens was awesome. I am in no way trying to underscore that, but when you're getting contributions from players like that, it makes everything you're trying to do easier. It makes the mountains you're trying to climb less formidable, less intense, less intimidating. So getting that kind of contribution from players further down your roster, and I say that in a very respectful manner, is the sign of not only great evaluation, great scouting, but great coaching and great opportunity meeting great timing. And Ryan Flanoy was arguably the MVP of the game from a contextual standpoint. I think Dak Prescott was obviously the MVP of the game. You can make an argument for Javonte Williams. The fact that we have to split these hairs is a very good problem to have. But I mean, in terms of relative to expectation, Ryan Flanoy was one of the very best players on the Dallas Cowboys during Sunday's win against the New York Jets. Kenny says Flanoy looked like Miles Austin in that one Chiefs game, Good Times. That was now, 15 years ago or 16 years ago? It's been a minute, to say the least. Let's see here. Kenny says, I love true fans in this community who have been pounding the table for Flanoy to be on the roster. He is one of those guys, and there is definitely a level of justification, a level of pride, a level of just kind of emotional sentiment when these things tend to happen. It is a matter of you believing all the time, and that's why wide receivers are such a popular pick around training camp and pet cat time. Let's see here. Shane says on YouTube, I've never seen him so decisive with his passes, talking about Dak Prescott here, and he's running the ball so well. They can't waste this season with Dak playing so well. Nick says, we thank the Broncos for Javonte Williams and ending the Eagles streak. That's right. We shout out to the Denver Broncos. Shout out to the Pittsburgh Steelers for George Pickens. They really helped out the 2025 Dallas Cowboys. Jonathan also notes that we could formally thank the Broncos for Javonte Williams. Something I said in the week leading up to this game, a lot of the Bleacher Report comments. This is our post-game show on Blogging the Boys, which is accessible in the Bleacher Report app. We're thankful to our partners at Bleacher Report for this. I'm thankful to our partners at Bleacher Report. Let's see here. Electric Finder says BTA, as the kids say. It is a family show, and I know I already used an expression, but I think we all know what BTA means. So it was definitely a BTA sort of day. Let's see here. Patrick says, I think the offensive line is the MVP. Let Dak operate and opened up enough lanes for Williams to pound the rock and come on that tight end screen for the touchdown, that first Jake Ferguson touchdown. How about a moment of applause wherever you're watching, whether it's on Bleach Report or YouTube, some clap emojis. Super shout out to Nate Thomas. Super shout out to Hakeem Adeniji. Super shout out to Brock Hoffman. Super shout out to TJ Bass. Super shout out to Clayton Adams, to Brian Schottenheimer. I mean, to get this done, this was truly, I know I make this analogy a lot. This was, for the Dallas Cowboys offensive line, an episode of Chopped. This was, dude, you have 80% of your offensive line out of this game. The New York Jets have a pass rusher, an interior pass rusher, who is so good that a month ago, when you wanted to trade Micah Parsons, you called them about acquiring that guy. And yet it did not matter. We're all dining on a 5-star level restaurant meal in production because of the job that everybody involved here did. The Cowboys offensive line, and again, all the staffers, all the points of evaluation, all the coaching, all the development, all the strength staff, all the medical staff, everybody involved who's kind of nursing this project along. I mean, there aren't enough flowers to give it to. We need a bouquet. We need a garden of flowers. We need like a secret garden of flowers. I don't remember the secret garden, if I'm being honest, so that reference might be a bit off. But that being said, you get the point. Like, this was unbelievable to get this type of production in terms of not just the offensive line being able to hold up, but the offensive line being able to do what they could to give Dak Prescott time to succeed, to be able to give Javonte Williams opportunities to succeed, to be able to give Jake Ferguson opportunities. I mean, we could go on and on and on and on. It is very fair to say that, if we are measuring relative to expectation, relative to reality, that the Cowboys offensive line, the reserve offensive line, deserves the most props in terms of what we saw on Sunday against the Jets. On YouTube, Musa says, RJ, considering how this offense is playing, is it Marie line trade possible for a DB? I'm not totally understanding what you meant. Is a Marie line trade. Again, if you can clarify that, I would love to answer that question. Jonathan says, first time the Cowboys wanted the Jets since 2003. This had been kind of a weird house of horrors for Dallas, losing in 2019 when Sam Darnold came back from mono. The Jets were 0-4. They beat the Cowboys. I know I talked about that with Jake Assman in the week leading up to this in my interview series. It was a great point of context, great narrative, but thankfully that things did not come to that. Look, this was, oh, I see you, Musa says, an Amari-like trade. Okay. Honestly, no. Look, I think that people are going to say that it was just the Jets, but my highest level of confidence coming out of the Cowboys win against the Jets on Sunday, in terms of looking forward, really has to do with how they won, and the how they won being that it involved players down the roster. These are players who were significant contributors for the Cowboys on Sunday against the Jets. We're talking about the entire makeshift offensive line. So you've got Nate Thomas, Hakeem Adeniji, Brock Hoffman, TJ Bass, Terrence Dill's a starter, but you get my point. We're talking about Ryan Flanoy having a serious role in this mix. Luke Schoonmaker was involved. Hunter Lipke was involved. Jaden Blue got a cup of coffee or two. On defense, Sam Williams, Dante Fowler. I mean, you're talking about players who did not necessarily have the highest level of expectation when this season began for the Cowboys, and yet they were some of the most, maybe the most significant contributors from, an overall perspective looking at this game. And because that's the case, because the Cowboys coaching staff, who is still learning, who is still developing, who is still cultivating a brand new culture, that they were able to mine this type of performance out of players further down their roster, is why I don't necessarily feel like they have to go do this. They have to go, get X, Y, or Z. No, I kind of trust what they're doing. And the proof is literally in the pudding that they're serving, which is delicious at this point in time. I mean, again, we're talking about, in some instances, they're down to their second, third, maybe even fourth options at certain positions because of injuries and other things that have occurred. So they have more than earned, in my opinion, the benefit of the doubt to be able to make things work from a season-long perspective with the players who are on the roster. I don't think that they necessarily have to go out and make any kind of brash moves right now. And that's ultimately what you want from your team. You want your coaching staff and your evaluators and the people in the building to be able to make it work, to be able to make it happen. And the Cowboys right now are proving that they are that type of coaching staff, which is an impressive thing. On YouTube, let's see here. Shane says it would be nice if Jerry would make a trade for someone on defense. I don't know who that would be, but it would be nice. IMO. Alan says Dak looking like pre-injury Dak. Skyler says stock down Brandon Aubrey. How dare he miss a kick and kick it out of bounds? LMAO. I haven't written my stock report, but I will give Brandon Aubrey a stock down because he technically, when your stock is that high, your only direction obviously is to go down. But we all obviously trust Brandon Aubrey moving forward. Here's the thing. I had a video this week on the channel. For those of you watching on Bleach Report, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. If you're checking this video out on YouTube, you haven't subscribed, like the video, subscribe. You can also follow me and hang out on social media. All the links to all of my social profiles are down in the description below. This game to me signified a true and legitimate step forward. Everything about the Cowboys season prior to last week was about the Cowboys-Packers game, and that was annoying. It was ridiculous. It was exhausting. It consumed all of the energy in the room, but it was just simply the reality of the circumstances because of the Cowboys trading Micah. And even then, the Micah thing took up all the energy and all the oxygen at training camp. I mean, this week was the first time without any kind of Micah thing, on the horizon. All of the Micah stuff this week, and I don't mean to make this in any way a negative about Micah. I wish him the best outside of it impacting the Cowboys, obviously. I have no beef is my point, but this was the first week, really is my point. This was the first time, this was the first game, this was the first week in which all of the Micah stuff was finally in the rearview mirror for the Cowboys, and they could truly, totally, absolutely, clearly and concisely just focus forward. And I don't know that, I would say this was purely a result of that, but I think that it had something to do with it. If I had to personally add my own perspective and my own, kind of guess and assertions as to, what exactly went into the domination of the Jets, besides the fact that the Jets are obviously a down NFL team, that matters. That was a big thing. And so for it to not be anywhere, for it to fully and totally be behind them now, I imagine with some level of reprieve, and we saw them kind of just play. I mean, it was just smooth and fluid, and everything was just about functional, aggressive football for the Cowboys against the Jets. And that's a really exciting thing, certainly considering what lies ahead. You've got the Carolina Panthers next week, who certainly have not looked great this season. That presents an opportunity for them to get north of 500. And then who knows what's going to happen? Obviously, the Commanders and the Broncos and the Cardinals, we can go on and on and on, are coming up. But I think this was a kind of a corner-turning week and corner-turning game for the Cowboys, and that's a really exciting thing. Thank you for the super chat. J-Dog on YouTube says, stock up Eberflus for blitzing more than once. Yeah, I mean, kind of like Brandon Aubrey only had room to go down from a stock perspective. If we're being fair and just being straight up, Matt Eberflus only had really room to grow, room to go up. But he did. I mean, I think Matt Eberflus bounced back. Look, this was ultimately a game in which the Cowboys spent an entire week hearing about how, from all of us and everybody else, they were the worst defense, not only in the NFL, but like in franchise history and NFL history. And so they gave up an opening field goal, which was impressive. I know, giving up points is whatever, but I mean, that possession ended on the Cowboys 7-yard line because they dug in, because Dante Fowler dug in and the ball hit the sky cam, and that was crazy and everything. But after that, these were the Jets' possessions after the opening field goal, before things kind of reached a garbage time perspective. I don't mean to, just cherry pick, but punt in the first quarter, the second quarter possessions for the Jets, punt, fumble, shout out obviously to the fumble, punt, then the end of half, then to start the second half, punt, turnover on downs. And they finally got a field goal at the end of the third quarter, and then another turnover on downs before getting those 2 touchdowns, like I said, in what I think we all agree is garbage time. So again, people are going to say it was just the Jets, it was Justin Fields, and this offense stinks and blah, blah. We've seen the Jets put up points on other people, and I don't even mean to make that kind of argument. What I mean to say is the Cowboys heard for an entire week how they were the worst defense of all time. I will go out on a limb and speak for all of us here, thought that the Cowboys were going to win on Sunday, but that they were going to let the Jets make it a much closer game than it had to be and let the Jets score on offense. And that did not happen. They deserve props. If we're going to, indict them when it's appropriate, we should give them their due. We should give them their credit. We should give them their flowers, and they more than earned them. Again, we're talking about players down the roster. Dante Fowler had his best game since returning to the Cowboys. Sam Williams had his best game of the season. James Houston continued to thrive. Maris Liu-Fowle looked awesome. I mean, for the most part, this was a game in which they took care of business. And that is something that you ultimately expect from an NFL team, but it is a much harder thing to do than it kind of sounds when you say it out loud. Eric Chalk says Nate Thomas is the MVP. I don't disagree with that. Nate Thomas has been wonderful for the Cowboys. He's been quite the find. Lots of talk about Jack Sanborn. Yeah, it's not been good. I think that's okay. We all agree with that. Like, we don't have to, just kind of go over the top. We all agree that Jack Sanborn has not been, helping the Cowboys when he's been on the field on the defensive side of things. I see you, Alex, saying, "What's up, RJ," on YouTube. Let's see here. Shane says, "Shout out to Dallas, dominating at the end of the first half 2 weeks in a row. LOL, getting the fumble at the end of the first half." The Cowboys, they didn't double dip because they did not score on their first possession to start the second half, but they kind of double dipped at the end of the first half alone. They got the Jake Ferguson touchdown, and then they had the crazy Javonte Williams play where he ran out of gas right near the end, and that allowed the opportunity for Dak Prescott to toss another touchdown. Or that was the Jake Ferguson touchdown, excuse me. So, it was a kind of a weird double dip that wasn't a double dip, but kind of was a double dip. Either way, that was really when the game was over, I think, in all of our minds. It's an NFL game, and you never know, and things are always possible. But I think we all, kind of put this thing on ice at halftime, and that's always a fun thing. Skylar on YouTube says, "Stock up victory polo Monday. Tie Monday didn't hit the same." I agree with you. I'm excited to bust out some polos. Let's see here. Alan says, "No Micah, but we got a Houston A." If that's a joke or a clever line, it's going over my head, so I apologize. Senor Ray on YouTube says, "Jays needs to call David Mulugeta to lock up George Pickens." George Pickens continues to shine for the Cowboys. In this game specifically, let's pull it up. George Pickens had 4 targets, 2 receptions for 57 yards and the touchdown. So I'm in no way saying that George Pickens had a bad game or a poor game or anything like that, but the touchdown was a 43-yard touchdown. So outside of that, he had 14 yards. He had 1 reception for 14 yards, and he had the 43-yard touchdown. And I think, if I may speak for all of us, I think if you had told me that George Pickens would have 2 touchdowns in this game, even understanding that one of them was a 43-yard touchdown, if you had told me that before the game, I would have said, yeah, they're cooked. The offense must just have broken. There's no way they're going to win this game then. But that's why this game is so impressive to me, is because when CeeDee Lamb got hurt, I think we all collectively thought, well, George Pickens is just going to have to go Super Saiyan until he's back. He's going to have, kind of like he did against the Packers, a buck 43, multiple touchdowns. That's going to be the only way the offense is going to sustain itself in a CeeDee Lamb-less world. And that did not have to be the case. And again, not to take away from George Pickens, his 43-yard touchdown was awesome. I don't want to say it was inconsequential, but it came when the game was pretty well established in the Cowboys' favor. I hope my point is being understood here. The reason, the exciting thing about this is George Pickens did not have to put on his cape or go Super Saiyan because Ryan Flanoy put on the cape, because Javonte Williams was grinding things on the ground, because Dak Prescott was able to get things done in a decisive manner all over the field, because Jake Ferguson had multiple touchdowns. The Cowboys are turning into a team that, thank God, is no longer dependent on one specific thing happening, whether it's CeeDee Lamb shining or George Pickens shining or going Super Saiyan, et cetera, because in the past, it's been a team and a system that has been dependent on those specific things happening. And the Cowboys have been fortunate. It's been impressive that those things have been able to happen more often than not. But not everything goes according to plan in the NFL. Sometimes the player in question has a bad game or is double covered, or you just can't get them the ball, or a number of things that are possible, because it's a world of infinite possibilities. So that the Cowboys are able to rely on so many different options, have so many different points of action, so many different things for Dak Prescott to orchestrate and choose from. That is the most exciting thing. Again, that is truly when anything is possible for an offense. And I think the offensive performance, the overall performance from the team on Sunday against the Jets is really representative of that. Clever Raven on Bleacher Report says, I don't like that they took their foot off the gas. I wouldn't qualify it as taking their foot off the gas. I think that they just, they knew they'd won, and it's week 5, and you don't want to get silly. You don't want to get crazy. And they understood the circumstances, and we're just trying to, hurry the sand in the hourglass to kind of fall through. I don't believe it was taken. I mean, the Dak Prescott to Javonte Williams touchdown happened relatively late. They were not, coasting and just, running 3 plays and punting every single time. On YouTube, Alex says, it's crazy that we are a team now. Everyone picks up slack. That's a great way to put what I'm saying. This truly is a team that has a number of options all the way through. Last week, George Pickens caught multiple touchdowns. This week, Jake Ferguson caught multiple touchdowns. I mean, Javonte Williams had an incredible game, obviously, in this in this contest, had multiple touchdowns, not obviously through different manners. But I mean, that is what a team is. That we talk about, and it's better to talk about them now that they lost, but we talk about a team like the Eagles and how they have all these weapons. That's what the Cowboys are morphing into. Not morphing into the Eagles, but morphing into a team where it's, okay, is it going to be Javonte Williams right now? Is it going to be George Pickens? Is it going to be CeeDee Lamb if he's back? Is it going to be Kevontae Turpin? Oh, crap, now we got to worry about Ryan Flanoy, Jake Ferguson. I mean, it is, and then you have the dude at quarterback who's kind of handling and orchestrating and running everything in a way that, makes that math a lot more difficult to process on the fly. And you also have an offensive play caller in Brian Schottenheimer, who is more than willing to dial up the aggression and press in the appropriate places. And so that's when things get really, really, really fun for an NFL offense, and therefore really fun for us as Dallas Cowboys fans. Thank you, Steven, for the super chat on YouTube. Says, needed this big W to keep the young Brandon boys from jumping ship to a bandwagon team. Sorry if you already covered Dallas, Steve, better, or New York Jets that bad. Both can be true. I think it can be true that the Cowboys improved, and some of that was, the bar was pretty low, right? It was not hard to improve upon that. But beyond all of that, this Jets team stinks, right? Like, I don't think any of us are, buying tickets on the Cowboys being Super Bowl favorites or anything like that right now. But I think we're believing that this team can contend and can take advantage of situations, can take advantage of matchups that work in their favor, like this one. The Jets having an offense that, is reestablishing its identity or rediscovering its identity. So, I mean, I think it's a matter of both circumstances, not necessarily one overpowering the other. It just looks like one overpowered the other because the Cowboys were the team that were overpowering on Sunday afternoon. Let's see here on YouTube. Senor Ray says Rico Dowdle went nuts today for the Panthers. I'm happy for Rico Dowdle. Next week, we need to chill, Rico, but I'm really happy for Rico, obviously. Johnny Boy RN says this is a huge win for this team for sure, but was this progress of the Cowboys, or was this about the Jets being, well, the Jets? I think it was progress of the Cowboys. Look, we can cliche this all the way through. Good teams win, great teams cover. The Cowboys more than covered. The Cowboys put up 37 points on an NFL team, but on the road. They did it with 80% of their offensive line missing. They did it with 2 of their primary pass catching options from a wide receiver standpoint missing in CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. I make and you make 0 apologies for that type of performance. We excuse it in 0 ways. And I think what's exciting about it is it's all born of a mindset that is aggression in the proper way. One of my favorite moments in this game didn't actually wind up happening. It was after, I think, the first Javonte touchdown, when the Jets had a penalty on the extra point, and the Cowboys decided, or Brian Schottenheimer decided, let's go for 2. We're getting the penalty yardage. Let's go for 2. It didn't end up happening because the Cowboys false started and they wound up kicking the extra point and whatever. But I love that mindset. The reason I'm excited about this team, the reason I feel like, pick your goal, your benchmark, whatever, playoffs, whatever. The reason anything is within reach for this Cowboys team in 2025, beyond the fact that the quarterback's playing like the MVP, is because they have a head coach who's establishing a culture that creates and, more importantly, demands accountability and responsibility. But beyond that, the head coach is the same person as the offensive play caller, and he wants his foot on the gas. He wants points. He wants to put points on the board. He wants to make 0 apologies. He wants to not embarrass his opponent, but he wants to just fully and totally exercise the will of what's at his disposal. And in this case, it might be the league's MVP at quarterback and some of the most potent pass catching options that exist across the league as well. So those things being in place make anything possible for this Cowboys team. That is so exciting. That is so thrilling. That is such a breath of fresh air. And that is one of the most important developments that we have understood about this team through the first 5 games of this season. Jonathan Dorch on YouTube says, Dak haters seething right now. I did a hit this morning, Sunday morning, with my friend James Espinosa on Keys in Corpus Christi. My whole family's from Corpus Christi, so shout out to 361. And I don't think there are Dak Prescott haters in as mass as there used to be. I don't mean to get us into the weeds here, but I do think, and that's kind of what's really fun about this, is I do think that for the most part, the average national analyst agrees. I think that, there's been a bit of a breakthrough. Some of it's been the, antics of the Cowboys front office highlighting how none of this is Dak Prescott's fault. So I do think that there is this, kind of tidal wave, at least what feels like a tidal wave relative to what we've experienced as Cowboys fans in the past, of credit coming for Dak Prescott from places where it otherwise wasn't in the past. I hope that makes sense. I think that makes sense. There are always haters, don't get me wrong, and there are always people who are going to say silly things regardless, but we've seen Dak Prescott play this well in the past, notably 2 years ago in 2023, and the level of support from a national media perspective was definitely not the same as it is right now. We're only through the first week of October, not even fully, but the first game in October, and so there's still a long way to go in this marathon, but it's exciting to see that not only Dak Prescott is playing this well, obviously, but that a lot of people agree, and we don't have to fight that same fight every day on the internet. Kenny on YouTube says, let's be honest, the same haters of Dak are the same ones who hated Romo, the casual fans who don't know ball. I agree with that. Michael says, Dak top 5 in the NFC. Michael, okay, I just made a whole point about this. He's not top 5. He's top 2. I mean, at this, again, there's not a quarterback in the NFC that's playing as well as Dak. The only quarterback you can make an argument right now across the entire NFL who is playing better than Dak Prescott at this moment in time, we're not talking about career accomplishments, career resume, or anything like that. The only one who I will listen to, and I think most of us will listen to as an argument, is Josh Allen. We can even have that debate. There is a debate. The debate is that Dak Prescott is playing better than each and every single person across the entire NFL from a quarterback standpoint. I have not seen any updates from the Cowboys from a Jerry Jones or Brian Schottenheimer standpoint, from a quote standpoint. Thankfully, there were no serious injuries or anything like that for us to watch. This was just, this is the dream, right? Like Karam says Baker. Baker's a good argument. I think Baker's playing well. I certainly think that is an argument. I would still take Dak, though. I think Dak's playing with more control right now at this point in time. But Baker is fair. I think Baker might be number 2 in the NFC. I mean, that's kind of where the conversation is in my mind. But this is a dream. We said coming into this game, the Cowboys are going to win, but they're going to let it be close. They're going to play with their food, or the defense is going to get beat or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And that didn't happen, right? Like this was an ass kicking, and that is not easy to do in the NFL. I mean, this is still professional football. This is still a team with dynamic playmakers like Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall. And, I think at times we thought that the dam was finally going to break or the bow was going to break and the baby was going to fall, but it ultimately didn't wind up happening. And so the Cowboys have an opportunity in front of them now, right? They can go beat the Carolina Panthers and especially on the heels of the Eagles losing, right? Like anything is possible. I know we wrote this team off in a lot of ways, obviously, and understandably so in a lot of ways, but the last 2 weeks have gone very well for them. I wish, and we all wish, they had beaten the Green Bay Packers and not tied. That goes without saying. But, I mean, there, I think, was a level of confidence that was born from that game or as a result of that game that made them feel like, hey, we can do anything and contend with anybody. And, again, not that the Jets are like the mighty New York Jets they had to go slay some sort of dragon with. But, I mean, this offense might be the best offense in the NFL. And if that is the case, and if that's going to be a steady case across the entire season, I'm going to repeat it. Anything is possible. They will be in each and every single game because they have maybe the MVP of the NFL at quarterback. When you have that, you can do anything. When you have that, life gets more difficult for the opposing offense because they have to go shot for shot with your offense, and you put more pressure on them. And we've obviously been on the other side of that as Cowboys fans. And so it is a cyclical thing, an NFL game, and the Cowboys having Dak Prescott playing as well as he is, and Brian Schottenheimer willing to, step on the momentum and the gas and the accelerator with Dak Prescott, and having options and weapons like Javonte Williams. And I mean, truly, Javonte Williams might be the most important thing that has happened to the Cowboys this season. I don't mean to take away from Dak Prescott, but Javonte, look, let's just talk about Javonte quickly here. Javonte Williams on Sunday against the New York Jets, 16 carries, 135 yards. He had the touchdown on the ground. He had the touchdown through the air on the reception from Dak Prescott that was like, what was it, 5 yards or whatever. He had two receptions for one reception for 4 yards and the touchdown. So, I mean, he scored, and I'm happy for your fantasy teams and your daily fantasies and things like that. But from a rushing perspective, talking about only on the ground, Javonte Williams against the Jets, 16 carries, $135. He had the 66-yard run where he did not score at the end. He did have the touchdown. He averaged over 8 yards per carry. This and everybody involved in what the Cowboys are doing offensively deserves credit, but this is one of the most catalytic elements. Javonte Williams having success on the ground game being a viable, verifiable threat for the Cowboys, that has served as something to unlock a lot of doors. The Cowboys still have to go open those doors and walk through them and handle what lies beyond them, but that in and of itself is such an important prerequisite for everything to kind of function. And that's been an element that wasn't just missing from their team last year. They haven't had a viable, dependable, steady, consistent run game, I would argue, since like 2019. They've had moments, obviously, since then that have been nice. And Tony Pollard had the year in 2022. But in terms of just what somebody could offer on the ground, I mean, this is a serious breath of fresh air and is a big reason why we're seeing what we are in terms of offensive success from the Cowboys in this current moment. Clever Raven on Bleacher Report says, I agree. Yes, the Jets are 0-5, but for the most part, they have had challenging games. We dominated for most of the game. Alan De Leon says, I prefer Flanoy over Tolbert. Alan, all due respect, who's like arguing that right now? Like who are you arguing with on that? I don't think anybody is. Shane says, it's been a long time since they've been this stable at running back in a long time. Johnny Boy RN says, Javonte Williams has been huge, but the O-line play and the depth has been such an improvement. There was a moment in this game where Jason Benetti, who was awesome on the call. I love Jason Benetti. I love him on baseball. And he's just such a great play-by-play man. It's obviously rare to get him to work with Greg Olsen, Joe Davis. Major League Baseball playoffs are going on. But Jason Benetti and Greg Olsen were talking about their conversation with Dak Prescott this week and how he said that this was, look, and Dak is obviously always going to speak positively of his teammates. We know that about Dak, but that this offensive line was a little bit different than the offensive line he had his rookie year in 2016, which was kind of the peak of things, as we all remember as Cowboys fans, but that this group might be deeper, that this group might have more down the line, down the depth chart. And I think that's the case. Again, build a statue, build a, there should be an award that gets to be split this week between Nate Thomas, Hakeem Adeniji, Brock Hoffman, TJ Bass, that the four of them, I mean, that any one of them would step in and play so well for the Cowboys by themselves is worthy of a round of applause and worthy of praise. But that the four of them could come in simultaneously. Obviously, this wasn't their first game, each and every single one of them, but that the four of them could come in, and take on a stout New York Jets, defensive front. I mean, who cares who it was, actually? I mean, that is a very difficult ask, a very difficult proposition. And they handled it not only well, they handled it, I mean, in a sterling way, in a sterling manner that allowed everything the Cowboys wanted to do on offense to be within their reach. It wasn't a game where Dak Prescott was severely under pressure. It wasn't a game where Javonte Williams had to break a million tackles out of the backfield. No, life was very comfortable for them because their offensive line, which in this particular case happened to feature 80% of its initial starting composition out for the afternoon. I mean, they more than did their job. They were superstars. They were superheroes, and they deserve, again, just everything that you can possibly give them in the aftermath of this Jets win. Let's see here. Laurietta offers a lot of, praising emojis on YouTube. I like that. I like the good vibes. And that's the thing, man. Like when football's going your way, when your team's winning and when your enemies are losing, I mean, there are very, very, very few emotions that match this. And there are very, very few things that can excite you like this. And so I think we're all excited. We're all enjoying it. We're all bathing in the emotions of it all. And tomorrow, we celebrate that with Victory Polo Monday. In case you don't know, you put on a polo or a t-shirt or a hat, you paint your fingernails, a scarf, socks, whatever. Even if you don't have anything, as long as you have a Cowboys song in your heart, that's what matters the most, because we're celebrating the fact that the Dallas Cowboys just opened up a can of whoop ass, as we said, on the New York Jets. My name is RJ Ochoa. I've been covering the Cowboys for 10-ish years now, and I'm so grateful to each and every single one of you who enjoy hanging out with me on the internet. Your time is the most precious commodity that you can give someone. I'm eternally grateful that you give some to me for us to talk about our favorite football team. It's obviously the most fun when it happens on days like today. If you're new around here, please like the video on YouTube, subscribe. I have daily videos, some live shows, all sorts of fun things, obviously live post-game shows discussing, analyzing, critiquing, lamenting, praising our Dallas Cowboys. And so I'm looking forward to a more fun week than last as it relates to the Cowboys. Certainly looking ahead as well, because it looks like the Cowboys, should be able to put together their first winning streak of the season. If you want to hang out with me on social media, all the links to all of my social profiles are down in the description below if you're on the YouTube side of things. X, Instagram, Threads at RJ Ochoa, TikTok, RJ.Ochoa, my Facebook page. Just search for RJ Ochoa. You want to follow me on LinkedIn, whatever you want. Email is rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. Yeah, this was a fun day, and I really enjoyed talking about it with all of you. So let's go ahead and get out of here. At this point in time, I hope you eat something delicious. I hope all of your fantasy teams do well. I hope your bets or whatever you got going on, I hope it all hits. I hope it's all coming up you, because football and sports and life are best when those sorts of things are happening. Thanks so much, everybody, for hanging out. You have the greatest day of all time. You know why? Because you deserve it. And we will see you next time. Thanks once again for your time, and we will see you mañana. Have a good one, everybody.